Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today is day number 86 of 100 Days of EDH, and we're going to talk about Dissension. Dissension was released in May of 2006. It had now 180 cards, raised up the number from the last set, 60 of each, common, uncommon, and rare. And it also had the final three two-color guilds as represented by the little, I don't know, shovel looking things of the part here, also present in the D of Dissension. So let's look at it, shall we? Celestial Ancient has been reprinted a bunch in especially commander sets. 5 mana, 3/3 flyer, but whenever you play an enchantment, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. That's pretty strong in an enchantment deck. This is kind of one of those creatures that you just kind of include. Yeah. Condemn. Condemn's another 1 white mana instant removal spell. There's a ton of those. Put target attacking creature on the bottom of its owner's library. Its controller gains life equal to its toughness. That's can actually be more beneficial than the others because it gets rid of the indestructible guys. So it's a good card, but it does kind of limit you to it has to be an attacking creature. Now, Proper Burial is just kind of a, I don't know. It is a life gain card. It's a 4 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Here again, I keep going back to Sarah Avatar. And then, last set we had Storm Herd. And life decks are, they're a ton of fun. You got to protect yourself from commander damage, but they're still a ton of fun. Psychic Possession. Now, Dana Roach over at EDH Rec and the CMDR Central has been playing around with this card. It's a great card, especially with cards like Temple Bell. It's an aura for 4 mana. Enchant opponent. Skip your draw step. So we have no draw step. But whenever enchanted opponent draws a card, we get to draw a card. So this can net you some serious cards, especially if you have something like a Temple Bell. Because Temple Bell, you tap and each player draws a card. Well, you're going to draw 2. Pretty nice. Skyscribing. I'll pay 1 more for a Prosperity. Yeah. Blue X, each player draws X cards. Prosperity was from way back, and it was X and a blue for each player to draw X cards. This has the added forecast. For 3, you reveal it from your hand, and each player draws a card. But you can only play forecast abilities during your upkeep and only once each turn. So I never really cared much for forecast, but that's neither here nor there. It's another copy of Prosperity in decks that want it. Oh, Tidespout Tyrant. 5 generic and 3 blue for 5/5 flying Djinn. Whenever you play a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Now, one of my favorite cards to play with this is, of course, Capsize, because you get 2 for 1. Yeah. I also like Rite of Replication. Yeah, that's sick. Demon Fire. Now, while not a tribal card, because they don't do that anymore. Well, actually, at this point, they haven't done it yet. But Demon Fire, it does speak to, like, Rakdos decks. You know what I'm saying? It just speaks to it. But it deals X damage to our creature or player. It's a blaze type ability. If a creature's dealt damage this way, exile it. Sure. Hellbent, if you have no cards in hand, that's what the Hellbent mechanic was. That was the Rakdos ability. It can't be countered by spells and the damage can't be prevented. So I really, really mean it. You're going to take this damage. Elemental Resonance. 4 mana for an enchant permanent. It's an aura. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add mana equal to enchanted permanent's mana cost to your mana pool. I've never seen this card cast, including me. Now, you can enchant things that aren't yours, because at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, if somebody else has something ridiculously expensive, yeah, you can do that. big creatures, I guess. Or if somebody has, I don't know. There's something here. There's something with it. And I'm surprised in 13 years somebody hadn't found it. Indrik Stomp Howler is kind of, oh, well, it's a 5-mana 4/4 beast, and when it comes into play, you destroy target artifact or enchantment. Yes, I know, there are a bunch of these that exist. We have Uktabi Orangutans, and we have Acidic Slime, and we have Rexage. I mean, just to name a few, there's a bunch. But now we have to be careful because I have played like a Rurik Thar style deck or a lot of, Nikia, the big creature decks. And, Torpor Orb is a bad time. Protean Hulk. Man, this card broke things. It was actually so good it got banned, and then later on they unbanned it. So we can play Protean Hulk now. It's not as broken in a singleton format as it was in 60 card Magic, but it's showing up good. If nothing else, it is a 7-mana 6/6 that when it dies, you get 6 mana worth of creatures and put them into play. So that's not bad at all. It does enable some ridiculous combos though. Anthem of Rakdos. This is exactly what an Anthem of Rakdos would be, I would imagine. It's a 5-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+0 to end of turn, and it deals 1 damage to you. Right? Okay, are you with me? Hellbent. As long as you have no cards in hand, if a source you would control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that instead. So here's the beautiful part, because it's Rakdos, and Rakdos really don't care who it hurts. The creature is going to get +2/+0 and then deal double damage, and then you're going to take 1, which gets doubled to 2. So I think that in and of itself is why Anthem of Rakdos doesn't see any more play than it does. But in a creature-heavy style deck, it's not bad at all. Saito Shape. Now this one is fun. Colorless green-blue instant. Instant. Choose target non-legendary creature in play. Target creature becomes a copy of that creature till end of turn. So you can turn somebody's Avacyn into somebody else's Llanowar Elf. Yeah, that's right. And while you also have the chance to turn your Llanowar Elf into somebody else's Avacyn's legendary, so it can't be that. Bad example. Force of Nature. Why did I pick upkeep cards? Dang it, Brian. Anyway, you see what I'm getting at. You can make one of your small guys a big guy, or make one of their big guys a small guy. It's offensive and defensive, and it's really good. And I've never pulled one in all my Dissension packs that I have opened. Never. Experiment Crash. Oh, for 6 mana, we get a 4/6 legendary Ooze Mutant. That's why he's my tribal Ooze commander. Anyway, he has all activated abilities of each other creature with a 1/1 counter on it. A lot of oozes have counters. And it taps to put a 1/1 counter on a creature, just in case, one of your opponents is playing with an activated ability that you want Crash to have. You just, reach over, put a counter on it. It could be kind of diplomatic as well, People love to put the counters on the tap to draw 3 guy, So Crash has that. Anyway, it's a good card. Grand Arbiter Augustine IV. Now there are certain commanders that when they see, just at the beginning of the game and everyone puts their commander out there, people just dread. Now, there's a lot of CEDH commanders that are I don't really get too much into that. I view it as a different format. But this one is just, you automatically know, white spells you play cost 1 less. Blue spells you could play cost 1 less. They did that on purpose. And spells your opponents play cost 1 more. So typically what most people do is the taxation deck, to making things your opponents play cost more. And while yours costs cheaper, it's, you're jumping out way ahead. Ispira the Inscrutable. For 5 mana, we get a 3/6 flying legendary Sphinx. When Ispira deals combat damage to a player, name a card. That player reveals his or her hand. If they reveal the named card, search your library for a creature card with flying, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So we're going to want to build this as flyers. I mean, obviously. Some people use Ispira as their Sphinx commander. I have tribal Sphinxes. I think I have 2 tribal Sphinxes. I have Unesh, which is mono blue, and then I have the other Ispira, I do believe, as the Azorus Sphinx commander. But this one is probably just flyers. Is probably what's best. Lysola the Blood Witch. 3 mana for a 3/1 human cleric legend. Ooh, 3/1's mighty fragile. 2 generic. Sack a creature. She deals 2 damage to target creature or player. If the sacrificed creature was red, you draw a card if it was black. So here again, you're going to want to play with as many creatures that are both colors as possible. You could lean heavier into red and then play like Darkest Hour, so all creatures are black. No, because that just turns them black. Not in addition. Okay, yeah, never mind. Still good. Lysola, a great character. Momir Vig. Has nothing to do with the Momir Vig online format. It is 5 mana for a 2/2. And this one I did build Simic Gold, because every creature is both green and blue, so it triggers both abilities. Whenever you play a green creature spell, you can tutor a creature card to the top of your deck. And whenever you play a blue spell, you can reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature, you can put it in your hand. That seems a little... I think for 5 mana, you should at least get to put it into play. He doesn't see a whole lot of play, but I like him. Omnibian. Yep, that's right. It's frog time. There's not enough, I don't think, for me to build the tribal frogs, but we keep getting like one here, one there, and frogs and art and whatnot, so eventually, I don't know, in the next 10 years, I may be able to build tribal frogs. But this is a 4 mana 3/3 frog. Tap, target creature becomes a 3/3 frog. I believe now this would say it becomes a frog with base power and toughness equal to 3/3. So, this does... I mean, as long as you can target the creature and it's not shroudy or hexproofy or whatever, this allows you to, size down that giant attacker coming at you. So, it's a 3/3, and more than likely you can block and kill it. Or bolt it. Plaxcaster Frogling sees a lot of play in Simic +1 counter decks, obviously. It's a 3 mana for 0. Of course, it has Graph 3. But you spend 2 mana, target creature with a 1/1 counter on it has Shroud till end of turn. That is so good. The ability to pass out Shroud. Now, I think the ability to grant Shroud is better than actual Shroud, because a card with printed Shroud, even you can't target. But that way, if you can allow yourself to target it, and then, to give it Shroud when necessary. Pride of the Clouds. I don't understand why this Joker isn't expensive. Yeah, that forecast ability does not matter. It's a 2 mana 1/1 flyer, but it gets +1/+1 for each flyer in play. In play. On the battlefield. So, yeah, and it's in the 2 flying colors. So, it's a very, very strong card. Reign of Gore. A black and a red enchantment. That's pretty cheap, right? If a spell or ability would cause its controller to gain life, that player loses that much life instead. Y'all remember those really cool life gain cards? Yeah, second guessing that decision now. Rakdos the Defiler. Now, he's a baller when his guild is named his name. Okay? I mean, 6 mana for a 7/6 flying trampling legendary demon. That's ahead of the curve right there. When he attacks, you sacrifice half the non-demon permanents you control. That's your lands, your rocks, your enchantments, Anything named a demon, you count it up and take half. But whenever he deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices half their non-demon stuff. There's a good chance they're not going to have that many demons, if any. So he just keeps, he just keeps eating things, or, well, destroying things, which is kind of what Rakdos does, or what he did. He's a party guy now. Simic Sky Swallower. Now, the last, Sky Swallower was not much, but for 7 mana, we get a 6/6 Flying Trample Shroud. If that's not a win condition, I don't know what is. And it's a Leviathan, for your Leviathan decks. Because you probably don't have a whole lot of flying in those decks anyway. Swift Silence is a card I'm not comfortable playing. 5 mana instant, 2 white, blue, blue. But counter all other spells, you draw a card for each spell countered this way. Now, granted, this was at the time where, Storm was a thing, and we were about to go into Time Spiral where Storm was really a thing. But this is, you're holding up 5 mana, hoping to cash in on what? Finding that perfect opportunity to draw 4 cards. Well, there are just 5 mana cards that just draw you 4 cards. So, that's not a big deal. Tidings does that. But, I don't know. It is a counterspell. But it seems like every time I've actually had to end up casting it was because it was a feel-bad moment because, it turned out to be counter target spell, draw a card. I don't know. Trigon Predator. Woo. Probably one of the best repeatable removal items in the game. It's 2/3 flying, so it's got that evasion for 3 mana. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can destroy target artifact or enchantment. The versatility, the evasion, the size, the fact that it's only 3 mana and it comes down quick, that's a beautiful part as well. Void Slime. Now, it seems like I have no problem holding up 3 mana for a Void Slime. Over the years, they've kind of conditioned us to hard counter equals 3 mana. It was hard for me to make that transition, I'll admit, because, I started playing in the days of Counterspell and Arcane Denial. So, I didn't understand why Cancel even existed. But I don't think Cancel, as of 2006, I don't think we've got there yet. But Void Slime, they just took Counterspell and added a green to it. You can counter a spell, an activated ability, or a triggered ability. So it's it's a very Simic card. It's a very good card. It's a card I'm never sad to see in my hand. Windreaver's got all the abilities. It's a 5 mana 1/3 flyer, elemental. That's cool, right? No? Well, for a white mana, you can give it Vigilance. Or for a white mana, you can give it +0/+1. For a blue mana, you can switch its power and toughness till end of turn. Or for a blue mana, you can return it to its owner's hand. I think this would be... I don't know. I don't know what I would do to this to make it good, or to make it better. It's okay, if you just happen to be running Azorius Elementals, might want to think about it. Biomantic Mastery. Somewhere along the way, green has become like a card drawing engine. Just a card drawing color. It's probably the second best at drawing cards behind blue. And this is green and blue, of course, 7 mana. Draw a card for each creature target player controls, then draw a card for each creature somebody else controls. So, me and you, him and him, whatever. Whoever, the 2 players that have the most creatures, that's how many cards I'm drawing deep to try to find my, evacuations. Dovescape. Dovescape is a beast. If it comes down in your game, don't ignore it. I'm telling you, don't. So for 6 mana, we get an enchantment. Whenever a player, including yourself, plays a non-creature spell, counter it. Just flat counter it. That player puts X 1/1 white and blue birds into play, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. Now, I did crazy shenanigans with like this and Ether Flash, so each creature took 2 damage when it come into play, so that, didn't really, of course, I was also the guy playing Castle to make mine live through it. Yeah, I know, right? But there's other ways, real, legitimate ways to make this a good card. Simic Guildmage. Now, good representation of the Guildmage here. I wanted to cover this one because it does all the Simic things. It plays with counters and then plays with auras. So, hey, 2 mana 2/2 that's easy to cast. I'm down. The reason for the larger set size from Dissension over Guildbacked was they brought back split cards, the ones like from the style of Invasion. Now, I think these are only a minor difference from like modal cards. They are modal cards, but the aesthetics is what makes them so popular, I believe. But nowadays they may have run it into the ground so much it's not special anymore. But anyway, Crime and Punishment. This was part of the cycle where you could put the word "and" in the middle because we were so used to these phrases, if you will, Crime and Punishment. So Crime's got 5 mana. Put target creature or enchantment in an opponent's graveyard into play under your control. It's not bad because it's in the removal colors of both of those. And then Punishment, X green and black, destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with converted mana cost X or less. It's a fairly decent board wipe that not a lot of people play. Research and Development. So research, you get a 2 mana instant. Choose up to 4 cards you own from outside the game. Shuffle them into your library. Come back to that one in a minute. 5 mana for development. You get a 3/1 red elemental creature token into play unless an opponent lets you draw a card. You repeat this process 2 more times. Okay, whatever. Let's talk about research. Is research the card I've been looking for? Okay, so in order to play this card in EDH, we have to have a 3-color color identity of green, blue, and red because the card is a sum of its total colors. Its color identity is 3 colors, so we've got to have red. Now, I would also want white and black in there, so we're looking to 5-color commander deck here, and that has its own set of issues. But here's what I'm thinking. You can choose up to 4 cards you own from outside the game and shuffle them into your library. Now, first off, since we play a format that doesn't really have a sideboard, get ruling from your playgroup or LGS on how they handle wishes and cards from outside the game. But here's what I want to do with it. I want to use research to make Battle of the Wits work. I just want to add basic lands. Or, I don't know. We wouldn't have to be basic lands because you choose up to 4 cards you own. Our deck building restrictions are 1 copy per card. But this is not deck building. Could you just shuffle in, 4 Vampiric Tutors or 4 Demonic Tutors or whatever to try to, or more copies of this? That's it. That's what you do. You get 120 copies of Research and Development. And you just shuffle more researches into your deck. And you just keep doing it over and over until you have 200 cards in your deck. And you can win with Battle of the Wits in EDH. Thank you. Where's the Tylenol? Yeah. See, that's where my mind goes. Then we have the Azorus Signet, the standard signet, of course, for the Azorus Guild. I'm sorry, is it Azorus Syndicate? Azorus Guild? The Azorus Senate. Evolution Vat. It's not bad. 3 mana for a Simic artifact, because it's got that colors in the box. 3 mana and tap. You tap target creature and put a 1/1 counter on it. Until end of turn, that creature gains 4 mana : double the number of counters on this. That seems really stinking good with Experiment Garage. I would have put this in there if I had because evolution vat and ooze, that actually looks like ooze that's coming out of it. So, it's bubbling and churning and yeah. If I'd had an EVAT, it'd have been in there. Rakdos Signet, Simic Signet for the Simic Combine. Now, Walking Archive, have you noticed in the past 3 sets in the Ravnica block, there's like they print an artifact that is indicative of that guild. Each guild has most of the time, rare artifact. And this one just happens to be a 3-mana 1/1 creature with Defender. Now, it comes into play with a 1/1 counter at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player draws a card for each counter on it. And, of course, you can spend 4 mana to put a counter on it. Kind of neat, especially in a deck where you plan on mounding up lots of 1/1 counters. So we have our Guild Shocklands. I just kind of rolled through them in Guild Pact, but these are probably some of the best lands that we can play in Magic, period. End of story. They are good. About the only thing that outclasses them is the old, expensive, ABUR duels that are prices of cars now. So, if you got it, flaunt it. And Breeding Pool. Now, Ghost Quarter is interesting. It solves a problem, but it doesn't put the player behind. It gets rid of their Maze of Ith or their Rogue's Passage or their Gaia's Cradle, whatever. But they get to go and get a basic land. You should have started this way to begin with. Don't plan on coming in here and abusing none of that junk. Get that beside you out. Or whatever. Hollow Fountain, of course, the Azorus Shockland. And Novagen Heart of Progress. I run this in almost every Simic deck because occasionally you've got the mana. And to just throw another counter on each creature that came into play this turn is, not a bad plan. Especially if you don't have anything else to do with your mana. Now, Pillar of the Palms. Homework question for y'all. What's the right number here? What's the right number of cards? It is a land. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, but it can only be to play a multicolor spell. Hybrid also counts as multicolor, gold, what have you. So, what's the correct number of cards in your deck, in a commander deck, before a pillar becomes viable? Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it half? 50? I don't know. I run it in the solid gold decks, obviously, but I always have this fear of if I run in a deck with 20, 80% of the time, this is going to be useless. That's how I'm looking at it. Am I wrong? I don't know. It's a straight-up all-star in solid gold decks, I'll tell you that. And that is what I have got for Dissension. I do appreciate y'all watching. Y'all let me know what you think, and we will see y'all tomorrow.